Hello, everybody. Suzanne Kellner-Zinck, Dawn Visions Hypnosis, here to tell you about my mission. It's been a pretty interesting life, I would have to say. And it's probably not too different from a lot of people who find themselves delivering what is known as complementary health services. Other people call it alternative health services. In my case, I consider it the best of mental health services, quite frankly, in the world of hypnotism. Many moons ago in the 1980s, 1989, I do believe, I was diagnosed with this thing called manic depression. Bipolar was not a thing yet. The term wasn't developed until several years later. But if one was to diagnose what I used to have, because I no longer have it, thank God, it would be known as bipolar 2. So, depression with hypomania, hypo meaning less than mania. No psychotic events. Trust me, the shrinks at the time made sure that I never went in that direction. All the medication they dumped on me, oh my God, I could barely function. In any case, I got in my head after a certain period of time of working with psychologists, psychiatrists, whatever, that I didn't want to have this leash attached to my neck where I had to be under the care of a psychiatrist because I was taking lithium at that time. I was on that crap for 15 years. Yeah, it did chemically stabilize me. Give it credit for what credit's due. But it never took care of the underlying problems. And I really did not want to stay in Massachusetts for the rest of my life. At that time, I wanted to go to California to live, which I did do several years later, because I had been there many times for my hypnosis trainings. And I liked it out there, the weather, and I thought the people were nice. Unfortunately, when I did finally get there to Southern California, I found that I didn't like the people, though the beaches were beautiful. But that's a whole different story. In any case, I got into my head that there had to be a better way to both help my clients heal after seeing my clients being totally dismissed, demeaned, and in some cases neglected and even abused in certain supported housing programs that I was working in. In fact, the first place that I worked at was so unstructured. The counselors knew not a thing about what they were doing, and the directors were worse than the counselors. If that could even be imagined, but it's true. We're going back to 1994. So quite a few years ago now. We had this client, Sean, who was a really sweet guy. Paranoid, schizoaffective, blue nails, blue lips, and not one goddamn person in that place seemed to notice it. But I did. And I realized there was something wrong. This kid was not getting the oxygenation that he needed into his body, among other problems. Now, being the kind of person I am, I do not take no for an answer when I am onto something. And I had a meeting with his parents who came to visit. He was an adopted kid, although he was an adult at the time, 33, same age as me. And I told them I had no idea how I was going to get him the hell out of that program, but I was going to get him out and get him into a better program. And I did. I went over 2 bosses' heads, and I'd do it again in a second, especially knowing what I know now. The first thing I had to do was find a different program for him, and thank God the assistant director of the program liked me and was willing to help me to get him into a hospital for a medication evaluation, because we had to figure out why he wasn't getting enough oxygenation. It so happened it was his court-ordered Prolixin, intramuscular, like into the muscle monthly. It was causing the problem. And it was while he was there that I was able to move him from our useless and damaging program to another program that was up the hill from where we were located, where he had his own room, 3 meals a day, laundry done for him, and all the rest of it, which was not happening in the place that he was at. A year and a half later, I found out from the assistant director that he had gotten his GED after dropping out of school at the age of 13, I think it was, because of the paranoid schizoaffective disorder that he had. He was just too psychotic to really do too much with school at that time. 17 years later, I'm in the produce department of a grocery store in the same neighborhood where the program once was. Miller was there. And his roommate, well, one of the two he had at the time, recognized me. Didn't recall my name. That's okay. I didn't remember his either. And he told me that Sean was living in the community with a roommate, which was shocking to me because he didn't trust his roommates at all at the time. Remember, he was paranoid. And doing really quite well, and I'd never recognize him if I was to see him today. People, that's why I do what I do. But that was way before I ever got into hypnotism. It's just a point to let you know how bad the mental health system was, and it's probably worse now because medications are given out as if they are candy. I have 3 master's degrees at this time, people. I have one in public policy, specialization in medical sociology. I wrote over 160 pages for that course of study. We had to do 3 a week. It's an online course of study. And my capstone was what makes a mass shooter a mass shooter. And that's when I found out that every mass shooter had been on some kind of psychotropic medication. Psychotropic meaning a medication for psychiatric illness. Many of them serotonin reuptake inhibitors, SSRIs, which have a black box warning on them in the pharmacy, stating that they create homicidal or suicidal thoughts in youth who take them. Why are we handing this crap out like candy? It's all about the marketing. And by the way, there's no such thing as brain chemistry being a cause for any kind of psychiatric illness. It was a great marketing ploy by those who were marketing the SSRIs. So get over that fact. And then we give amphetamines to kids who are normal. Kids are supposed to have energy, especially little boys. Instead, they want to keep them institutionalized in these things called schools, sitting on their butts for 6 hours a day without recess or physical education in too many schools. It is ridiculous. I'm here to tell you that my mother knew when my brother, who died when I was only 2 months old, so I don't have any recollection of him, was sick because he didn't have the energy that his 2 older sisters had. Took a 1.5 years to figure out that he had leukemia. People, we want our kids to have energy. That means that they are healthy. We want them to have curiosity. It means their brains are operating. Very, very important. So anyway, as I was going through this whole procedure, I was diagnosed with manic depression, which is known as bipolar 2, once that was shifted into no psychotic events because of all the lithium they threw me on to prevent that from happening. But there was a problem too because the psychiatrist I had at the time would not listen to me for 6 months, and finally I had my then husband come in and tell her I was totally useless, couldn't do a damn thing in the house because I was so tired and exhausted all the time. I had no energy and could not think, which is a very common complaint that people on psychotropic medications have, because these things do alter your mind and they can lower, shall we say, your energy level. So she listened to him and dropped my med by 1 tablet. I went in the next month and put the words into his mouth saying that he thought I could go down again, and she put me down again. Thank God I was taken out of her care, put into lovely Dr. Jones's care, and she took me down even more. Because she explained to me something very interesting. She said, people who have manic depression have a gift. The thing is that you don't want to be in a place where you go psychotic. And she gave me the example of Ted Turner, who had created CNN because of his out-of-the-box thinking and endless energy, as an example. And there's a lot of people like that who have done a lot of really amazing things. The point she was making was that I could have my superhuman abilities kept so long as we kept me in the rational level. But I really didn't want to be stuck with that any longer. So what happened was I wanted to find a non-toxic way to get healing done for myself. And I also wanted a non-toxic way to help my clients with mental illness. And that's when I found, after doing nursing school, that I hated nursing and really didn't want to have anything to do with the medications. Anyway, when I found hypnotism, I was going through a couple of holistic healing magazines in Arlington, Massachusetts, where I lived at the time. And they each had a different training for hypnosis. They were each only a weekend long. I chose one. And I'm really glad I chose the one that I did because that's where I learned how important languaging is when you're dealing with the subconscious mind. So I did my first and second training with Julie Griffin. And the first one was just basic course, and the second one was advanced clinical hypnosis. We had to learn how to write scripts and hypnosis for both people with emotional problems and people with physical problems and do it correctly. I don't know anyone else who was teaching script writing at the time. She had to figure out how it was done, and she always integrated that into her trainings. God bless her for doing it. From there, she was associated with American Board of Hypnotherapy, which is also the American Board of Neurolinguistic Programming and the American Board of Timeline Therapy, all owned by Advanced Neurodynamics, Tad James. And I did go out to take his NLP practitioner training, Neurolinguistic Programming, in 2003. It was a year after I had learned how to do hypnosis and had been practicing for a little while. And I loved it, and I got so much out of it. It was like really cool. Shortly after that, I was going through a really, really hard time with my marriage. My mother was acting out. She had borderline personality disorder. She's now deceased. And she was causing a lot of problems in my marriage. Although I have to say, my ex was trained by me in how to understand the splitting behavior, so he didn't buy into it. But it was still a problem. And I was having quite a problem at the convention that year. And I was complaining that I needed my APEP program now, not in September in Hawaii. Didn't know how I was going to pay for it anyway, meaning to get out there, it was already paid for, the actual program. Lo and behold, magic happened, and they told me that they had it happening right there after the convention. If I could reschedule everything I had on my agenda for that week, they'd get me over to the other fancier hotel and I could take part, even though I didn't have the master practitioner training, which was a prerequisite because a lot of the things that we did in the Advanced Personal Evolution Program, otherwise known as APEP, included some of the stuff that you learn in the Master Practitioner. So I did that, and that's when I learned how to get rid of my manic depression. I'm sitting in the little training room down in the basement conference room of the Radisson Hotel in, I don't know, is it Irvine, California, whatever it is. 5 minutes from John Wayne Airport, and I'm standing in front of Tad and Adriana. They're sitting on the other side of the table, and Tad says to me the following. I remember it like it was yesterday, even though this is like so many years ago now. Suzanne, how would you like to get rid of your manic depression? I had a client 20 years ago who had manic depression for 20 years, and he hasn't had it for 20 years. I'm like, yes, please, tell me how you do that. And so he did. The only problem was I was so depressed I couldn't remember how to do the timeline therapy, although he gave me the 3 negative emotions that needed to be cleared. And Matt reluctantly demonstrated to me how to do the first one because I couldn't remember because my system was so depressed at that time. Poof, it went away. 5 minutes. Seriously, it's a true story. He told me that I needed to go back to the psychiatrist, be taken off the medications, which she did. I was only on a small amount of Lamictal at the time, and I had her follow me for 10 months until I knew I was fine, and she knew I was fine, and she gave me her good blessing. And she actually told me during the last session that she had learned something very important from me, and that thing that she learned from me was that people do not have to have bipolar 2, at that time manic depression, for the rest of their life, because I certainly did not. So, folks, I learned some very important things along this whole process. I learned, number one, that just because some people don't know what the hell they're talking about, tell you that something is impossible, it's totally possible. You just have to be illogical, like the Kabbalists say, and figure it out and never give up. Be persistent. Number two, I realized for my nursing degree, all the prerequisites, I really do overlay a lot of the stuff that I learned in nursing with all the physical stuff, the bodily systems, body, mind, how that all works together. And then, because Matt and Tad James were very much into the esoteric, spirituality. They included some Huna training, and I actually did some Huna training with them. True. To include all that into the work that I do with my clients. Another thing I learned was that I do not believe in psychiatric medicine anymore. I do not believe in the DSM because it's not based on anything empirical. It's based on a bunch of stuff, well, shall we say, symptoms, signs, symptoms, whatever you want to call them, that a bunch of people from the American Psychiatric Association come up with as a list. And they went from 1957, when they had slightly over 100 diagnoses, now to almost 300. They're creating diagnoses to sell drugs. That is what is happening. That is reality. And most of these drugs have not been tested more than 6 to 12 months. The average person on psychotropic medication, meaning medication for psychiatric illness, is on it for 5 years or more. That means you can't give informed consent because unless the drug has been out for a long time, you don't know what the long-term effects are. Never mind the fact that they're giving this crap to kids whose brains are not fully developed. And I'll tell you this. When I was doing my public policy degree, medical sociology, my capstone project was what makes a mass shooter a mass shooter. And there was some research done on, I think it was 23 mass shooters. Every single one of them had been on some form of psychiatric medication or had gone off it very soon before the shooting actually happened. And what you need to know is that SSRIs, serotonin reuptake inhibitors, have a black box warning on them stating that youth can develop homicidal and suicidal thoughts when they take it. So why in the hell are they handing this shit out as candy? Your guess is as good as mine. Could it only be because they're that greedy? It's ridiculous. This is what we're dealing with. I also don't believe in 99% of the psychological theory out there either. I do believe there's a place for life cycle psychology, which really tells you where a person should be emotionally developed via the chronological age. And I use that a lot with the addicts that I work with. I don't work with drug addicts anymore, but my eating disorder people and my sex addicts most certainly, because once a person's dopamine isn't working anymore, the receptors are not being receptive anymore because of the addiction. This is when people stop emotionally developing, and that's what I need to help them do after they're done doing the healing work. And then I also learned a lot with abnormal psychology because I'm not going to be working with people who I cannot work with, meaning those with full-blown personality disorder. Personality disorder people are stuck in an emotionality of 0 to 2, 3 years old because of the damage done. They can be very intelligent people. They can be insightful as hell, kind of scary. My mother was such a person. But they aren't able to really take the changes and make them last forever. Because I worked in mental health for many years before I got involved in hypnosis, can work with people who have psychotic features, and I've learned how to understand the metaphors, what they are, and work with them within that. And actually, the late, great Milton Erickson used a lot of metaphor that came from his patients in order to help them heal. It was one of the things that he did he was great at. So people with psychosis go into that naturally. So there you go. So I want you to understand that your subconscious mind is actually where the defense mechanisms are created. It is actually your amygdala of your brain where your emotions reside, and it's in your hippocampus where your very imperfect memories reside. The earlier the memories come from, the less they have to do with reality, because when you're very young, you're not able to reason, rationalize, or judge anything. You're not able to understand another person's perspective, and this is what causes a lot of the problems that our adult-looking people have today, who are triggered by everything under God's green earth and love to use their diagnosis as excuses to not do the things that, shall we say, normal people do. So hypnosis helped me to get rid of the bipolar 2, otherwise known as manic depression, when I was diagnosed in 1989. It helped me get rid of bronchial asthma. I was seeing my doctor every 6 months. He had no idea how to help me. It was a limiting belief that I needed to get rid of. It took 8 hours in the master practitioner with my trainee, who I did work with her in we had to work on each other to learn how to use the tools and techniques that we learned in practitioner to actually help people heal. And so she helped me get rid of that. So that was pretty amazing. And I got rid of a 2.2 non-cancerous brain tumor by, I don't know, visualizing the sucker out of my brain. 2 years MRI proved that it was totally gone. This is what you can do with a brain if you actually know how to use it in the way that it was meant to be used. Unfortunately, you're not taught how to do any of that. God forbid you be able to take care of yourself. Seriously, folks. And any of you who think that it goes against your religion, I'm here to tell you that religion is probably one of the most hypnotic things involved, including faith healings. What happens in that case is the parishioner, totally believes that the cleric has the ability to heal them. They're put into a trance. You know this because they're so loose, they fall to the floor. That's a hypnotic state, people. Call it what it is. And they're able to be rid of their problem in a matter of seconds. This is how that works. As well as repeating the same thing over and over again like you do with the rosary. Heighten focus every time you have a preacher who's telling you, get up, get down. They use their arms to show you the stuff that's heightened focus. It's all a form of hypnotism. You can argue with me and all you want. I don't give a damn. I'm telling you what it is. Because if you don't know what it is, you don't know what it is. I've been studying this stuff, I don't know, since 2002. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours going into it. Probably thousands by now over all these years. I've worked with a few thousand clients over the 25 years I've been doing hypnotism. So you can sit there and doubt me all you want, but my clients' results of getting rid of their problems once and for all speaks a lot more reality than anyone's uninformed concepts of what is going on and what is not going on. But religionists aren't the only hypnotists out there. You have your advertisers who use repetition and emotion to get you to do what they want you to do. You have your politicians who put the fear of God into you if you don't do what they tell you to do. Remember, heightened emotional state is a hypnotic state. Even if it's a positive emotion, you're still in a hypnotic state. And I don't know, people in your life who know how to trigger you. Be wary of them. I'm here to tell you that if you want to be healed, you can be healed as long as you don't have personality disorder full-blown. I have helped people with aspects of personality disorders overcome their problems, but not full-blown ones. And again, I can work with psychotic involved people not to lessen their psychosis. Can't do that. But I did help one who had psychotic features let go of flashing and sex addictive behavior. I didn't even know he had psychotic events at the time. I found that out later. And I helped another one with issues with illicit drug abuse. So there you go. But I don't do any of this drug stuff anymore. Smoking, pot, maybe, but that's it. So if you want to learn more about how you can contact me, I have a calendar link in the description below. You can buy me a coffee if you enjoy these videos, and I look forward to hearing from you because my mission is to help people heal who feel they've tried everything under God's green earth and it hasn't helped them. As quickly, as efficiently, and forever. Working as quickly as you're capable of making it happen. I am not cheap. I've been doing this a long time. I know what I'm doing. I'm an expert. And so you're going to pay expert prices because you get what you pay for. Very simple. But payment plans are available for those who need them. Well, as always, I thank you for spending your time with me. Till next time, I hope you found this fun, interesting, and educational more than anything else. Bye-bye.